Hey everybody, this is Doug from Fanatik Bike Co. I'm out here on a rainy spring day to talk to you guys about the new Fox 38. Fox revamped their entire suspension lineup for 2021 and released the highly anticipated 38 fork. I was lucky enough to get out and ride this thing and give some of my feedback. So before we talk about all these new features, let's cut to that ride and I'll give you guys some of my personal feedback and what I thought while I was riding it.
All right, so we're back up at the top. Fork's feeling pretty good. I've got my high-speed compression wide open. I've got my low speed at the recommended 10 clicks from closed, and then I've got my high and low speed rebound set to the recommended. So we're gonna just get a full lap in and flow this. See how this thing does. Let's do it. Beautiful day today, holy cow. Bouncing off the pedals. Oh my gosh. Whoa. So as I was saying, this thing is just stiff as a board, which is good if you're riding this kind of stuff, where it's rough and repeated hits, you notice that stiffness. Oh yeah, we're going fast now. Oh my God. Stuff like that, oh my goodness. This thing kind of just begs to be pushed hard. Much harder than I'm giving it here, but we'll call this good for now. When the trail gets rough like this, you'll be happy you're on a stiff thing like this, and you know, looking down and seeing those giant stanchions are certainly confidence inducing. And if you're me, you'll take every bit of confidence you can get. Oh yeah. Take this little sneaker line. Like I also said, this thing just sits really nice as travel, but it feels very much more supple and plush than the previous 36 forks, which I know was a nice departure from the overall stiffness that, or the, not stiffness, but the harshness off the top that those were giving people. Oop, up and under. And as a lighter rider, I appreciate the suppleness, the plush, how plush it is off the top, just handling those small bumps with ease. And that's something I really appreciate in a suspension product.
All right, so obviously I had a great time out riding this new fork. I was able to get it out on a more rough and rooty trail, really get this thing working, and I gotta say, it felt great. You probably heard some of my feedback when I was riding, so super impressed right out the gate. So let's talk about some of these new features on these Fox forks. I'll start from the bottom up, and we'll start with the new floating axle system. Fox has their new patented floating axle, which essentially allows you to match the width of your hub flange perfectly, reducing any unwanted friction and binding you might have in your hub and axle system there. We all know when it comes to suspension that less friction is better, so I think that's a really cool feature. The Heritage Edition fork that we have here comes with their Cabolt X style axle, which is your standard bolt-on threaded axle. I think it looks a little bit cleaner, and it's going to add a little bit more torsional stiffness as well. And when it comes to the 38, stiffness is the name of the game, so that's a really cool feature. Moving to the back of the fork, you'll notice these raised channels in the back of the lowers here. Those are just allowing for oil to flow more freely to the top of your fork, keeping your seals and O-rings lubricated, just providing a smoother ride, which is always good. Another thing they did in the fork lowers here was actually increase the air volume in the negative air spring. When your fork compresses and you're towards the end of your stroke, there is a higher pressure buildup, air pressure buildup that happens, and sometimes that can prevent you from achieving full travel. So increasing the air volume, making those air pressures less when your fork is at max compression will allow you to achieve full travel easier. Also on the back of the fork, you'll notice these two bleed ports, these two little buttons on the back. And This is a cool new feature because if you're someone who travels a lot, maybe goes and fluctuates between elevations, here in Bellingham, we're at sea level, but if I were to go to Colorado and go for a mountain bike trip, let's say, there's gonna be some unwanted air pressure that built up inside my negative air spring. So what these little bleed ports are gonna do is just you're gonna depress those and it'll release any of that unwanted air pressure that built up due to an altitude change. And it'll just keep your fork performing better, enhance that small bump sensitivity, and really just let the Evol air spring perform its best. Moving our way up, probably the most noticeable difference visually on these new Fox forks is the new arch design, and this is implemented on the 36 and 38. It's obviously a more rounded design than the previous forks, which were more angular, and it also actually juts out a bit farther, providing a little bit more clearance with reduced offset forks and bikes with larger head tubes. The last thing you want is your arch hitting your head tube at max compression. Another thing they did was also increase the stiffness while minimizing the amount of materials used, which is really cool, just using less stuff. I mentioned Fox reducing the amount of materials used while maximizing stiffness. That's also something that's carried over to the steer tube on the 38. This is a 38 exclusive feature. It has an elliptical steer tube. So if you actually look down the steer tube of your fork, you'll notice it's ovaled, not a perfect circle. Again, just minimizing materials where it's not needed while maximizing stiffness. And again, on a fork like this, you want it to feel solid, so that's a really sweet feature as well. All right, so inside the fork, we're still sporting the Grip 2 damper, which is the pinnacle of adjustability when it comes to suspension. You got high-speed rebound, low-speed rebound, high-speed compression, low-speed compression. It's extremely tunable. That's really cool. In the previous Grip 2 dampers, they had what they're calling their variable valve control, or VVC, implemented on their high-speed rebound circuit. They have now brought that technology to the high-speed compression circuit as well. If you're wondering what VVC is or how it works, Fox has a really good and informative video on that on their YouTube channel. Go check that out. I'd love to try and explain it to you, but they do a much better job of explaining it, being that they're the ones who designed it. So, super good resource. They're also sporting the Evol air spring, which I mentioned. They increased the air volume in that, just allowing for a more plush and supple ride, better off the top feeling. That's something I really appreciate as a lighter rider. I have a hard time setting up my forks, so that's something I noticed right off the bat when I was riding it, which I mentioned. So these forks also come in the standard grip damper, which just has your 3 positions, your open, mid, and closed. It's not a fully closed position, but just a firmer compression. And that's coming in at a little bit of a cheaper price point and is available in the Performance series. So you'll see all these forks in the Factory and Performance Elite series as well. The Performance series of Fox forks do not come with the bleed valves on the back, but you can have those installed after the fact. So if you think that's a cool feature and something you want, that's something you can do. Shave a little cash off your budget. Another thing that's really cool is Fox has an optional bolt-on fender. I have my own fender on here, and I thought it was kind of funny because I had to actually zip tie 2 zip ties together to get them around these big old fork legs here on this 38. So if you're gonna do that, expect that, a couple extra zip ties, kind of funny. Again, this is the Fox 38. This is gonna be a much stiffer ride than the 36 for a good amount of reasons. One being it is obviously 2 millimeters bigger. They have increased the stiffness in this fork all around, torsionally fore and aft, transverse shear, all that stuff. And that's something I noticed right off the bat too. When I was riding, this thing just felt extremely solid going through that rough stuff. So I'm calling it right now. I think we're gonna see some bar spins in Rampage with the existence of this fork. Who knows? I'm putting 20 bucks on it, so if you wanna hold me to that, please do. All right, so you'll find a lot of these new features on Fox's other forks, with the exception of the elliptical steer tube and some of that added stiffness. Like I said, those are gonna be unique to the 38. Being a stiff fork like this, it's gonna be geared more towards your enduro riders, you know, racers, free riders, just hard charging riders in general. As I stated out on the trail, this thing is super stiff, super plush, and it feels great on those rougher trails. So this is gonna be a great option for riders like that. If you have any questions about any of these new Fox products, please give us a call or an email. You can email us at sales@fanatikbike.com. My coworker Rich will get back to you with any questions you might have. I did forget to mention that Fox also redesigned their entire shock lineup, the DHX2, the X2, the DPX2. So if you're in the market for a new shock, check out the new updates they have on those as well. Hope you guys are staying safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you guys next time.